Welcome to the No Vacation Required podcast, where we break down tired traditions and outdated thinking by asking the question, why are we still doing that? It's all about building a life you don't need a break from, being more present and fulfilled, and showing up in a complicated world that needs your voice and unique talents.
Why are we still so ashamed of building the life we actually want? We've been thinking a lot about why it feels awkward to admit that we've built our life around what we really want. That may sound strange given how public we are about our no vacation required life, but the truth is we keep many things private. Now, some because it's healthy to keep things private and protect certain elements of your life. But there are things we don't talk about because it creates too many ripples. Today, we're going to let you in on some of those things, and we're going to talk about actually living and broadcasting the life you want.
Time for Mindshare, a time where we quickly share what's on our minds. And like all the best talk show hosts, we don't talk about it ahead of time, but I know what you're going to talk about because it's all you've been talking about for these last couple weeks.
Well, it's practically all we've had going on in our life the last week, and that is we just got back from Disneyland, where we celebrated our nephew's 6th birthday with his mom and grandma. And let me just say this. I'll start with this, Kent, and then I also want to hear your thoughts.
You're going to talk about how wonderful it was to see the joy of Disney through the eyes of a 6-year-old. No, that's very true.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I have to admit, we have not done Disney with kids or a kid before. Now, those of you who know us know we've been to Disney a lot.
Yeah.
Disneyland, Disney World. We used to work with Disney. We've done many, many, many projects with them. So we know Disney as well as anybody knows Disney.
And we have a lot of love for Disney.
Yes, we have historically really appreciated Disney, their product, and the ethos.
But
this has changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean...
This is your mind share, not my mind share.
I could not believe... No, I do need to say, we had a wonderful time with our nephew. There is definitely something to seeing and experiencing Disney through the eyes of a kid. It is a completely different experience than our, adults having a good time drinking at Oga's Cantina or whatever we've done in the past.
Yes.
It's very different. And I loved seeing our nephew, joy on his face as we rode like Tiana's Adventure, Bayou Adventure. It was darling, and it's a great memory. But I have to say, I could not be more disappointed in the Disney experience as a whole. I thought it was outlandishly expensive, and I thought the experience did not live up to the value proposition that we've known in the past and that people talk about still today. I was shocked.
Yeah, this kind of started towards the latter period in which we were doing some work, some things that made us uncomfortable and that we were vocal about, blah, blah, blah. But going this time deep into some of those changes, and for instance, this is just a brief mindshare moment, not the whole podcast, but like the whole lightning lane thing where you're paying additional, as most of you probably know, paying additional for access to rides in a speedier fashion. They never really delivered on that. All the opportunities to utilize the multi-pass, which we had paid for, were way, way late in the day. And it just keeps everybody's heads in their phones. It was just it was a weird, sad experience. This is what it's come to.
That's the thing. And then I know we need to be moving on because this isn't a podcast about Disney, but I couldn't believe how much time we had to spend with our faces buried in our phones trying to figure out where to go next, or what to do, what reservations we could get, only to have that whole experience be ultimately very disappointing and not facilitative at all.
Yeah. But a good thing happened. We sort of had to throw up our arms because it was crazy busy. And we kind of just did it old school and used our very expensive add-ons, park hopping and multi-pass lightning lane, as little extras. And, that made it it fun again. But I think, and we know a lot of people who still work with Disney, I think influencers and bloggers have a ton of heavy lifting because this is not questioning the magic or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's an absolute ripoff, all in.
Plain and simple.
And we know bloggers and influencers who are honest about that, but we just thought, how are they pulling this off now? Because you've got to thread a very fine needle to kind of make this case. Because, the joy, the storytelling, the magic, true. But you can find that in a lot of other places too. And I think we all have to start questioning. It's like the premise of how we live, questioning what we're buying into.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% it feels like exploiting nostalgia at this point. An experience that does not live up to whatever memory you might have of Disney. Yeah. Shocked. Anyway.
Mind share. Out. So why are we still doing that? Why are we all still ashamed of building and broadcasting the life that we actually want? We're doing a lot of work with people and work groups around this right now. So it's reminding us of our own experience. We've talked recently, I think in the last podcast, about how there's this time where there's this urgency in wanting to live a full life despite what's happening around us. So in really leaning into this with clients, we're thinking of our own now quaint story of a couple decades ago when we set off to build the life we wanted, what we now call our no vacation required life. And as we've said many times before, and I'll say the brief version now, finding what little time we had together at that time in our relationship to train for a marathon. And what we spent all of our training runs in the middle of the night practically doing was talking about when we can later in life, we want to build a life where we're doing something together.
Yeah.
Because obviously, even with our successful careers and not seeing each other because of that, we knew that that's what we ultimately wanted to do. So then we asked that pivotal question, which is what we're always asking people to do now, which is, wait, why are we doing the traditional model where we wait to do that? Let's forefront it.
Yeah.
Now is one of our big change keywords, really inspiring people to do whatever now. So at the time we did what we now ask people to do, to list, to think about what you prioritize, what you want to build your life around. And one of the things we wanted to build our life around was spending more time together, because the time we spent together back in those, 10 years where we barely saw each other, 8-10 years, was being around each other. So we knew we wanted to make that a centerpiece of our life, in addition to, starting our own business and doing all that. And as Caanan said in the intro, like to this day, not to mention when we started, when people were like, what, you want to spend all your time together? And we're supposed to complain about our partners and boyfriends and girlfriends and spouses, and you want to build your own business and work together and live together. And it was just us not being able to lean into the joy of this life we were building. It was us having to explain every micro element of why we would dare leave what we call the dream of the planet to do what we actually wanted to do. So that's what we're talking about. Our journey of building and broadcasting the life we want, and the process of helping people do the same thing.
Yeah, because here's the thing. This is kind of the gag, if you will, that this far into our no vacation required life, we are still very reluctant to tell people the truth about our relationship, which is, and here's the shocker,
truth.
We spend all of our time together. I mean, all of our time together. We work together, travel together, we live together.
We built a life where we could prioritize spending our time together.
Yes, this is by design. This is something we wanted. We won the relationship lottery. We're best friends. I like being with Kent. Kent likes being with me, and we want to spend the time together. So we are extraordinarily successful in that. But when we tell people this, as Kent just mentioned, we don't get oh, wow, you guys, that's amazing that you get to be with your partner all the time. We get, how does that even work? How do you not kill each other? That's probably the thing we hear the most. How do you not kill each other? And it's not a tell us how it works so that I can spend more time with the person I love. It's more derisive, more, why would you choose to do that? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like we're having to defend
Yes.
all of these decisions. Going back to what I said at the beginning, like you're making these moves that go against
Yeah.
what people collectively know. I didn't want to say believe. It's what they know. And so you're not talking about anything interesting with most people. You're just defending your decisions. And those are the ripples that Caanan talked about in the intro. And there's nothing more depleting than being in like weird justification interrogation mode. So we would rather just not get into it.
So that's us. We built a life where we could spend time together. That was a priority for us. And we're really proud of having done that. And we think that should be celebrated, as we think any healthy decision or decision you make that makes you happy, that elevates your life, that maybe goes against the grain but feels good to you, should be celebrated as well. So let's talk about why, before we get into ideas mode, let's talk about why the healthy, happy decisions to go against the grain are not celebrated.
Yeah, and I think this is why people are ashamed of building the life they actually want,
Yeah.
because we know, we're just conditioned to know when someone breaks away from the pack, this is how people respond.
Yes.
So I think there's a knowingness of that truth when people think about living the life they want and they think, oh, risk level is too high.
Yes. There's definitely a, what would we call it? A self-censorship about how society will respond to decisions you make that go against the grain, that keeps people from even trying. But I think when people do try, and we've heard this from many people, friends who are in similar situations to us and thought leaders, they will say that one of the biggest surprises is how unhappy people are for them when they make these positive changes in their life. And definitely that's because you're going against the grain. You're making people aware of their own decisions,
Yes.
maybe their own inability to make healthy decisions.
Yes.
And as we've said and wrote about in our book, there's a feeling that people see your positive choices and success as a referendum on their life.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the cultural conditioning, those factors. You're supposed to want independence. Your career should define.
Yes, if you're not striving for more, something's wrong. So all of these things, all of these unwritten rules that we all internalize keep us from making decisions to live a life that is aligned with our strengths and values, essentially. But they also have society telling us we're wrong when we do actually make those decisions.
Yeah. So interestingly, and even a surprise for you, I'm thinking about literally just 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
we were out of town in a swimming pool, and there were like four other couples at the other end of the swimming pool.
Okay. Yep. I know where you're going.
Yes, because I saw, you talked about like your career should define you, and we talk about this so much with people. All the people we talk to who have made moves to prioritize money, and then we start working with them and they're like, no, money's not a priority for me. And we're like, then why are you doing this prioritize money thing? And it's because your career should define you. This is how I keep up with friends. This is what my parents always said I should do. So anyhow, we're in this pool. I'm sensing like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't want to be involved with this big, loud conversation these four other couples are having. Turns out they like beckoned us closer. They wanted us involved. So we scoot to the other side of the pool. And what are these complete strangers doing other than we're playing a game of what everybody does just by how they look. And we were immediately like, this is like the worst idea ever.
Yes, I would like to be removed from this narrative.
I know. Yeah. So very much like this too could be the entire podcast, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. We're trying to think about how to inch away because it's just so bad, so bad. And
so fraud.
one person guessed that somebody might be a teacher, and then somebody else chimed in and said, he's not a teacher. A teacher couldn't afford to stay here. It was terrible. Anyhow, it gets to us, and we talk about the work we do, and we had this big gag which people loved, that we both do the same thing. So they guessed me, and then they like started all over to guess Caanan, and then like walked right into the same answer, but we completely derailed their entire game because the entire narrative shifted to how in the world do you do that? And I thought it was very funny. I wanted to respond to you earlier and say every single person just turned it into their own experience. Like, I could never spend that much time with him. Another spouse saying, I could never spend that much time with her. All this stuff is just like questioning us, putting us on the spot, and trying to draw the conversation back to the dream of the planet, which everybody's comfortable with. And we had to hear these tired, basic stories about how this is why we work so hard. And you will not be surprised to learn that there was an endodontist, an employment lawyer, everybody, just top tier traditional professionals. This is why we work so hard, so that we can come on vacations like this and spend time together and have fun, and talking about how the night they arrived, they slept for 14 hours.
It's another perfect example of us entering the conversation, this time not by our own choice, and then disrupting the schema. And that's not welcome. Everybody wanted to play the game where they got to show off what they did and essentially how much money they made, because that is the social currency that is the most important social currency we have in this country right now. And us coming in and talking more about our relationship
and our experiences
that wasn't fun for people. And they wanted to immediately go to, as you said, my God, how do you do that? I would kill so-and-so who's sitting right next to me if I had to spend that much time with him. And that is considered to be the norm. And that is somehow the correct way to be, doing life, is to be striving, making a lot of money, having a partner who you laughingly, say you would kill if you had to spend your actual time with them. And us coming in and showing something different is really not that welcome.
No.
So,
and I keep fooling myself. I always fool myself with this, because we're in our brilliant bubble with the people we surround ourselves with and the content and, all that stuff. And then we go out into the real world, and I'm like, people are still playing this mental game. Okay, but here's how the shift occurs, and this is how it always occurs. So as that conversation is sort of dwindling down, there's that one person amidst those couples who takes a greater interest and is like, that's really cool. And you get them talking, and then you see their spouse kind of like, we've been talking about that, haven't we? And these people who are now going to go to the spa together and the guys are going to golf together, this is in their brain. And that's the shift. Lean in to those moments where you're around people who can understand your bigger dreams. Heck, not even your bigger dreams, your real dreams. Surrounding yourself with people who deplete you. I mean, this is just basic good advice.
Yes.
Also applies to this topic. Back to Caanan using that word. Us talking about our life creates too many ripples. Us talking about our life around the wrong people creates too many ripples. So you've truly got to find people. They don't have to be people just people you meet who you have that connection with over a contrarian view or a topic, you have to lean in to those relationships, to those sparks. Because if you stay in the path you're on, if we had stayed completely surrounded by the people living the life we wanted to break away from, we never would have done it. On that topic, surround yourself with content that's inspiring. Movies, books. We did at the time, and we do to this day, surround ourselves with content that takes a contrarian view, a view that makes us think, so that we can, last week we talked about, we just re-upped what our own version of a no vacation required life is. Like, we're always in process. We're always becoming, as Michelle Obama says.
Yes.
And that's where the good stuff is. That is how you begin to not be ashamed to live the life you want and to broadcast that life. Because if you're just surrounding yourself with the same old echo chamber, you're never going to feel compelled or, as Caanan kind of alluded to, safe to do that.
So in addition to that, if you are at a place where you're attempting to make some really positive change in your life, or, on the precipice of some sort of change, this advice is really important, that you be prepared for this kind of feedback. It has nothing to do with you. It's not uncommon. This is a signal that you are on the right path. So lean into it. It hurts a little bit. Yeah, do you wish everybody would be supportive? Of course, but that's not going to happen. You've heard it from us. Other thought leaders will tell you that. So now you know. But also, no matter where you are on your journey, right now, be the kind of person who lifts up other people who are making positive changes.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if it breaks your schema, even if it contradicts the way you think life should be lived. Look at that. Look at the courage that person is exhibiting. Look at the change they're making and say, wow, you seem really happy about that. Or I think that's really brave. I don't get it. It's not for me, but good for you. Let's talk about why it's good for you.
Yeah.
Be that person for other people. And as you said, Kent, certainly seek out those people as you're making your own changes, the people that will celebrate your positive changes.
Yeah, I recently said to somebody the old "be whiskey, not water" line, and they were like, "Wait a minute, what's that? That sounds very cool." I'm like, "Yeah, be whiskey, like water. Water appeals to everybody. If you're somebody who appeals to everybody, your take is probably quite muted." It also makes me think of the Maya Angelou quote, which I love: "If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be." And that's the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with being normal, but if you're always trying to be normal, you're not finding those things that define who you are. Maybe some fun realizations about what you're meant to be doing. Of course, all this is predicated on, she says, you never know how amazing you can be. You got to know who you are. That's, as you know, if you've been around here for a day or 5 years, our big thing is the best investment you can make is in knowing yourself. And that's what prompts this kind of change that is irresistible. Because once you know yourself and what you're made of, what you're meant to be doing, how you're meant to be growing, how you're meant to be living, you can't stand being confined by the world's expectations or others' expectations.
All right, we're to the final segment, which we call Worth the Time, where we share a recommendation for something that we think is worth
the time.
So, Ken, you've got one, so I'll let you go.
When I was thinking about this episode and this whole idea of just being around people and doing things and participating in life that gets you talking and thinking, I thought of a movie we watched recently called Weapons. And while it wasn't a bad movie at all, it was by no means a favorite movie of either. It wasn't of mine, yours? No. Basically, it's a movie about when all but one child from the same classroom mysteriously vanish on the same night at the same time. A community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. So that's the movie. But what's really cool is we found ourselves talking about what are the hidden messages in this movie? What's the director really saying in these things that seem pretty basic and tropey? And we had this whole conversation that carried us for a complete half marathon. And it's like, even these things surrounding a piece of content that you don't even really like, things that just get you talking and thinking and looking at stuff from a different perspective. It's so cool.
Yeah. So you've probably heard of this and already watched it. I mean, I think there was some significant hype around the movie that kind of missed us. And we are not horror fans. And this is solidly in the horror camp.
Yeah.
But we were genuinely surprised at how much, despite the fact that we didn't love the movie. I mean, we're kind of Julia Gardner fans.
Yeah.
Gardner or Garner?
Garner. Yeah.
Julia Garner fans. We'll pretty much watch anything she's in. We didn't love the movie, but man, we could not stop talking about it. And if you can't stop talking about a piece of art, then it was worth the time. So there you go.
Thanks for listening to the No Vacation Required podcast. For more information, including services designed to help you build a life you don't need a break from, check out novacationrequired.com. And if you found this information helpful, please subscribe.